In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement. I'm Matt Goolsby, filling in for Rick Everett this week. And alongside our Market Advisor Group panel, we've gathered here financial advisor Jonathan McCoy, founding partner of Market Advisor Group, Susan Curtis, tax advisor from Market Tax Services, Doug Chowder from Eidelman Law Firm, estate planning attorney, and Kim Sixkiller with Market Advisor Group, long-term care specialist. This week we're going to be talking about some things in long-term care, I understand, right? So we're talking about a client of yours, Deborah. And so Deborah, she has this one pressing concern of what to do with an inheritance, right? I mean, we see this often where maybe mom or dad or a family member leaves a family member or a loved one these blessings or investments.
Some sort of nest egg or a gift, whatever it looks like.
But oftentimes there's tax concerns, there's maybe sometimes even Medicare concerns if it pushes you into a higher income with IRMA. But where do you even start with this?
Well, when I first met with Deborah, the first thing that I recognized, and she was actually very open about some health issues that she had been going through, and this is part of what precipitated her having to retire a little bit earlier than expected, but ultimately her mom passing away was sort of the decision to make it the end of her career. She had loved her work, but really didn't feel like she had the faculties to be able to do it any longer, and the inheritance that she received through a life insurance death benefit payout from her mother was really what allowed her to be able to get to the point where she knew she could live on some cash for a while, but then potentially pay off her home and be able to live on a very reasonable budget and income need for the rest of her life. You know, she's single, actually divorced in this case, but with a couple of children in the picture, but the children are out of state. And while Deborah's going through these health issues, we're starting to recognize the fact that, wow, this poor gal is on her own completely. And the bigger picture really looks for Deborah like she's going to be living on her own independently for many years, many good years to come, hopefully. If things start to decline even more severely in her health situation, she's going to need some help. And one of her main concerns when she came to us was, you guys talked a lot about this estate planning thing. I'm not the attorney, I'm not the guy to be talking to in that. So we bring Doug Chowder and Eidelman Law Firm into the picture. And she was concerned that, if I do need some assistance down the line, I've already got brain fog issues. What if that gets worse? That's where Kim Sixkiller in our long-term care department comes in and helps. And sometimes people come to us thinking that we're just going to sell them investments. And ultimately, I think the bigger picture is more important to keep in mind. What is your situation, and what are some of those unaddressed concerns that you really maybe even haven't thought about yet?
And so when you're talking with Deborah here, who just received an inheritance, sometimes losing a family member can kind of trigger a review of maybe wanting to review your own estate plan process, or maybe lack thereof. And so let's go over here to Doug Chowder with Eidelman Law Firm. I mean, what were some things that maybe were going on in Deborah's situation where she received this inheritance from her mom, and maybe now it got her thinking, well, gosh, now what if something happens to me? I probably don't have my house set up. There's no estate plan here. What was going on in Deborah's situation?
Yeah, and Deborah had, in part because her kids are out of state and she didn't have a lot of family locally, so she had some questions about who am I going to use as my key people, who are going to help make decisions or help me out if I can't do that. How do I incorporate my kids into this mix if they're out of the area? She had not really done any estate planning previous to this, so there were just trying to get her basic documents into place, but also addressing what happens to her house after she passes away. How are we going to set that up so that she's able to transfer that asset to her kids and avoid probate, but also just getting in her basic health care documents and kind of reviewing her situation.
Now, these are all regular questions that get answered from a financial advisor often, but I'm scared to say that financial advisors, I give such bad estate planning advice because the rules and all these things change on a regular basis. And that's something you should really just stay in your own lane and focus on. And that's why we bring in the attorneys from Eidelman Law Firm, right?
Yeah, and that's why, I don't give investment advice to the folks that I meet with.
Even though you're a CFP.
I let Jonathan handle those things. So yeah, so it's important to have that approach where a lot of different experts can meet with the folks and review their situation with them.
So often do you find that, especially with tax planning considerations, when you look at this inheritance, a lot of financial advisors can just push this inheritance out to people and not really get that tax planning that you really need with it, right? Because if it's an IRA or if it's non-qualified stock or if it's Roth, all those have different tax rules to them.
Well, and keep in mind all those terms that you just mentioned, not everybody understands what that means, Matt.
That's so true. So, we'll come back here after the break here and go back over to Susan and talk about those tax considerations. But what was maybe some of Deborah's goals that she wanted to work on and working with this team, working with a financial advisor and the estate planning attorney together, how could you guys better help Deborah not only navigate this situation, but then prepare for the next generation for Deborah to pass on to?
Yeah, and Deborah had some considerations of she needed to make sure that she was taking care of herself first, and that's, so she was wanting to make sure she had things in place to cover her own healthcare and medical needs and that type of thing, but also hopefully be able to leave a bit of a legacy for her kids and do that. So we do like we do with most folks is we sort of start with the picture of where is this person at today, and what are they expecting for down the future? What would they like that to look like, and how does that planning for a legacy or planning for what they want to leave, how does that look like, and review their plan? Is it something that we can just do some kind of basic estate planning so that she's going to be set up to avoid probate? Is she wanting to do more complicated planning, and how does that all put together?
And I see so many times, and I'm sure you do too, where people that leave things to the next generation, they didn't always do it in the most tax efficient way.
Right, and a lot of it has to do with the tax planning that Susan Curtis and Market Tax Services do for us. It may be more pertinent at different phases in life, right? The tax planning you do while you're alive is to try to mitigate your tax exposure. Then we have that connection with the estate planning to mitigate tax exposure in an inheritance event upon a loved one's passing. And then there's mitigation of long-term care expenses. We're going to talk with Kim Sixkiller here shortly in the next segment about how those issues can be at least blunted, if not completely shielded against, in terms of not having to spend every last dime that you've ever worked for before the state or some other system comes in and helps pay for that care for you. So we look at connecting these dots, and there's a reason that we sit here as a panel every week and we talk to folks, both individually, but both also all of you viewers out there, where Matt's bringing up a lot of good questions, and the whole point is not one person, not one advisor, not one attorney, not one long-term care specialist, not one CPA can do it all. If I had to do this all myself for my clients, it would be an absolute disaster, both for us, for them, the institutions we represent, and we've got to look big picture at how can that team approach be a benefit to everyone that we talk to.
Well, and one of the benefits of working with a team I haven't heard you mention, and it's the one our chief operating officer loves to talk about all the time. It's what if you get hit by the magic beer truck?
Yeah.
There's a team that can come into place and fill that void.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of game time management that has to be done, right?
There sure is. A lot of times when someone receives an inheritance, they have to either create an estate plan or maybe even adjust the one they already have to deal with these new assets that are coming into the picture. You never think about it until it really happens to you. If you've recently received an inheritance and haven't adjusted your estate plan, Market Advisor Group is here to help. Set up a 15-minute introductory phone call with the Market Advisor Group team here to have just a 15-minute conversation by phone to see what you might have in your unique situation. Just dial 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833, the letters MAG, report, or you can visit our website, ionretirement.com. There you can also check out past episodes where we focus on client stories just like this one with Deborah. And you'll want to stay tuned because in the next segment of Ion Retirement, we take a look at long-term care and what it's costing everyday Americans just like you. We'll be right back right after this.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, Imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. Financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors. All in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you. To get you answers in real time. To help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Shocker Rowing.
Hi there, and welcome back to Ion Retirement. I'm Jonathan McCoy here with Kim Sixkiller, our in-house long-term care expert here with Market Advisory Group. A very beneficial member to our team, I must say myself. But what we want to talk with you folks today about are a lot of the common challenges that people are facing, and really what we're facing as a country in terms of how do we address this big long-term care issue. You know, we're looking at the first stages of the baby boomer generation beginning to enter long-term care. And I want Kim to walk some of you folks through what are those challenges. Not necessarily giving recommendations. It's a little bit dangerous to give advice, you know, individualized advice on national TV. But not worrying about giving any advice, you can give some very helpful direction on what this long-term care situation looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jonathan. So with long-term care, we obviously know that's kind of a looming crisis right now, the long-term care crisis, and knowing that so many Americans are going to need assistance. I think one of the misnomers is people understanding what long-term care really means, right? So basically, it's someone who needs help with 2 of the 6 active daily livings, right? So we know those are things like bathing, help eating, help with incontinence issues, maybe just moving from one place to another. And so in those, we really want to focus on how can we help Americans to make sure that they have the resources, right? Because the reality is that 7 out of 10 Americans are going to, at some point, use some kind of long-term care assistance. Maybe that's not actually being put into any kind of nursing home or assisted living, but perhaps they need someone to come in the house and help them out with things around the house or do their grocery shopping for them. So we like to focus in on how do we make sure that all of that hard work and planning that the team and that you've done doesn't get completely derailed by some kind of long-term care situation, right?
Right, and ultimately, you know, we've talked a lot about this. One of the things that's been laid on my heart as an advisor is this is a massively unaddressed gap in many of our clients and many other financial advisory clients in their financial situation. I grew up in a world where my mother has been a long-term in-home hospice care nurse, so I've spent some time with some of her patients. My grandparents have been in a long-term care situation for several years now, and we see what the expense is like. But I also see that one of the best benefits to having an appropriate long-term care plan is being able to stay in the home.
Absolutely. So what we see, and with the statistics showing that over 14 million Americans at some point are going to need some form of care, if you have not looked at your situation and said, first and foremost, when something happens, not if, because we're not going to get healthier as we age, what assets do I have set aside to make sure that I'm covered, to make sure that everything I want for my beneficiaries, for my loved ones, is able to stay in place.
And sometimes you just need a helping hand. So you got to account for that cost, but then sometimes you need much more than a helping hand. You need actually help with nearly everything in your life.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, when you're considering whether or not I want to look at long-term care, it's really not about taking care of yourself. It's about taking care of your loved ones.
So really what we're touching on is ultimately just the tip of the iceberg. We're in the beginning of where we're heading both as a country and as individuals. Folks that are retiring today, reaching those 64, 65, 67, those ages, we're looking at 15, 20 years down the road, and these are some massively unaddressed issues.
They are. We know that there are 7 out of 10 Americans that are going to need some form of long-term care. And within that, with the baby boomers having entered this time that they're looking at Medicare, they're looking at their estate, they're looking at whether or not they'll need to use the nursing homes. What's more important than ever is how do we make sure that they have the options they need, the insurances in place that they need, but also how do we make sure that there's a place for them to go, right? One of the biggest parts of this crisis is, unfortunately, like all other industries, we have a shortage of care workers.
Yeah.
And so when there's a shortage, obviously we know the cost of something goes up. So it's getting more and more expensive just to pay people because it takes a very special person to do that job day in and day out.
So we have 2 main priorities here. We've got to align at the top, quality of life. Secondarily, it's preservation of a portfolio, preservation of your life savings, preservation of your family's nest egg, whatever you may leave behind. And I think sometimes people get those priorities backwards. We've got to be paying attention to what is the absolute best quality of life you can provide for yourself without becoming a burden to your family, right?
Yes, without becoming the burden. With the skyrocketing costs, we really want people to understand everyone wants to make sure that they've prepared their families so that they can have the best care possible, but also their legacy stays in place, right? We know some of these statistics that even if it just means having someone come in and help us in the home, that can cost on average annually about $50,000. We know that if you're just needing help during the day with assistance, you can cut that cost in half. But again, where does that $20,000 come from if we haven't planned?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what can end up happening is if you haven't planned for that and you get into a situation where maybe you need Medicaid or someone else to step in, Susan and you and the team, no, we don't want to have to liquidate everything that we've built.
Especially if it's coming from retirement accounts. Susan talks all the time about mitigation of tax impacts, and all of these things can unravel very quickly.
Yes, so it's just one of those things that you want to make sure that you've addressed, you've planned for, and then ultimately you can enjoy the rest of your retirement.
Exactly. So in this segment of Money Monitor, we're focusing on long-term care, and in future episodes, you're going to see us focus on these things like Medicare, estate planning, investment advice, financial management as a holistic approach should look for your financial future. You know, when you're thinking about long-term care, it's easy to say, I won't need it. I don't want to have to use it. What if I don't end up in a nursing home? And when we think about these normal, what we think of as traditional long-term care insurance policies, sometimes you can pay premiums for years and years and years, and you and your family may never actually gain benefit from it. Market Advisor Group can help you. Sometimes all it takes is 15 minutes to find out what you might be missing. To set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-MAG-REPORT. Or check out our website at ionretirement.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us possibly to answer in a future episode. You see some of these questions coming up in our episode today. In the next segment of Ion Retirement, we go finish Deborah's story. Please stay tuned.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go? And who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Hi, and welcome back into Ion Retirement. Jonathan, let's go back to Deborah's story. I want to get back to Susan over here because I'm going to guess receiving an inheritance can have some tax consequences to it.
Yeah,
right?
we always wonder when the tax man comes calling, how much is that going to cost us, right? And part of the benefit here in Deborah's situation is, yes, unfortunately her mother is gone, but fortunately her mother had prepared for this event where, she wanted to be able to provide something for her family. These life insurance death benefits most frequently are a tax-free gift to the next generation, to your beneficiaries, whoever receives it. That provided some massive opportunities that, while I identified them, I could not directly address them, and that's exactly where Susan Curtis comes in.
Well, I was going to say, did you want to have Susan tell any of this stuff, or did you want to just take it away?
I'm out of my element at this point.
But Susan, as myself as an advisor, what I find is if I'm helping someone that worked with another financial advisor, they just start spending the money or using the money, and it's really important to understand what tax consequences happen with those dollars before you just start spending them, because sometimes there can be smarter ways to use those dollars in a way where it's more tax efficient, saves you money, right?
Correct. For Deborah in her situation, she wanted to live off of that money, and essentially the life insurance, the proceeds from the life insurance weren't taxable to her. So because of that, that opened up a lot of different tax planning opportunities for her. She was able to utilize the lower tax brackets for the rest of her life. And I mean, in the end, with visiting with her, we were able to help her, and essentially she ended up with no taxable income.
Isn't that nice? How about that? Mm-hmm. So it's all gets down to tax planning. But if you have these different pots of money coming at you, if you don't understand the tax consequences prior,
right.
Oftentimes people make a lot of tax mistakes. They may never realize it, might not even cost them money. They might not even see the actual cost, because what we've been doing with these lower tax brackets is a lot of Roth conversions, right?
Correct.
And so that allowed her to do some of those things because she could live off the life insurance money. Having no taxable income allowed us to use some of those, like you said, the 10 and 12% tax brackets, which locked in some of those tax savings when we did the Roth conversion, right?
Correct, absolutely.
And when Susan was bringing a lot of these things to my attention, sometimes you have these wow moments. And we can step back and say, eventually we might recognize this as financial advisors, but without a licensed professional to guide us, to better guide our clients, there are going to be things that are missed. And that's ultimately one of the reasons that Deborah herself decided to work with this team, is to fill in those gaps, the missed opportunities that may have occurred had she just gone it on her own and stuck with the financial advisor that she was working with, which she had a great relationship with this gentleman. He had moved out of town, didn't have quite the personal in-person meetings, but she really felt the big place where she was lacking in her plan with her former advisor was he was a good guy, had grown her money, but her life had changed. And sometimes you need a different team around you to help address a lot of those changes.
And getting the tax advice, the financial advice, the long-term care advice, and probably maybe estate planning advice all under one roof was very beneficial for Deborah, because it gave her one point of access and one source of truth, if you will.
And especially with her health issues, it was incredibly overwhelming. In some cases, she was even having difficulty having conversations with me. And I said, do we need to hold back on this meeting and maybe revisit these issues on a better day? And she was fine. We got the plan put together, and within a couple of months, she was off on a new, more profitable track for retirement.
And so now that she's enjoying retirement because she's working together this whole
team. A lot less stress going on with that.
There's a lot of less stress. Mm-hmm. And then we talk about in our estate planning classes how if you're not working with one person and you're hiring all these other people, it's almost like you're working for all the other people, right?
Yeah,
and they're trying to work for you.
You're trying to tie yourself to all these different levels of information and be the operator plugging, one professional into another, and things are going to get lost in translation in that situation.
And Kim, you've got a lot of experience in this industry. You've seen the fact that working together as a team is very beneficial for the clients, right?
Absolutely. So I think the clients don't have to go everywhere and try to tell people exactly, hey, well, Matt said this or Susan said this. Instead, the team is talking, right? You have, again, they're working for you and with each other.
There's a reason I can go get my groceries, a cup of coffee, my oil change, and donuts and whatever all in one place when I go get my groceries.
Wouldn't that be nice? What are we doing after lunch?
If there's anything I've learned over the years, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, It's the fact that working together as a team is more beneficial for the people I work with as a financial advisor, and that's why we do it every day here. And I've learned, like I said, over the years, I've learned these aspects of retirement are all interconnected. And that's the origin of Market Advisor Group in the first place. Our financial advisors kept running into issues with taxes, Medicare, and estate planning that we as financial advisors couldn't answer. So why not bring those advisors to the same place so the burden is lifted off the retiree? That's you. And if you'd like to see if this team could approach work, or could this team approach could work for you, all it takes is a 15-minute phone call with us, and we'd love to have that with you. And if you'd love to set that up, I encourage you to do so. You can call right now at 833-MAG-REPORT, or that's 833-MAG-REPORT, or you can pop on over to our website, ionretirement.com. There you can check out past episodes that highlight the different challenges from people that we've talked about, just like today with Deborah, or people that are similar in your situation. So just click on YouTube and search Ion Retirement. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Matt Goolsby, along with the entire panel, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client and prospect names mentioned on this show have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.
Why are all these words underlined?
Dear friend, I'm still being held against my will.
What do you expect of me?
I expect you to do your job. What's the going rate for a hat in the Sunday edition?
What's the headline?
Sheriff ignores possible kidnapping.
Dear friend, please find me. Please free me. Because there's a monster who comes at night. And night never ends in this place.